Okay, well, it's on to the slider part now. So because with limited molding facilities, generally I'm just molding, pushing down into some sand. So it makes it a simple mold. It makes it flat on the top. So it's got to be tapered all ways so that you can push the mold in, and when you retract your mold, you're not pulling any sand away, or you've got to be as steady as you can so that the mold is nice and clear. So their shape's revolving around a tapered entry, really. So in their raw state, they come out like this, just a hunk of lead, and I do a little bit of polishing up, maybe a bit of grinding on a belt sander just to tidy them up. Don't have to go too flash. I do clean the backs up and often drill that out a little bit with a big drill, just to, like so, so that the tassels pull and the skirt pulls in nice and easy. So then you paint them, and you can paint them however you want to. Quite often I'll do things, I've had a lot of success with designs, really, like a dark color maybe, and then putting some just felt pens over them, making some camouflagey type marks like squid often get. With a fluoro color maybe on the bottom, or you could do two-tone fluoro like that with some ribs. As long as you've got these big eyes, and I've found actually putting a black liner around the eyes makes them stand out a lot more. So that was just a little development. So you can come up with whatever you want, really. But as you can see, I've ground these bits of dowel, just put them on the grinder, and you've got to get them even, of course, because you want them to actually not go off crazy in the water when you're dragging them behind the boat, or when they're in the water with the resistance against them. So they do have to be even on either side. I found that shape to be quite successful. I do have plain round ones as well that I've gone for. With the tapered sides, you've got to have a flat piece on the side so you can stick your eye on there. I guess this has probably been my most successful one, slightly tapered but quite broad, because they seem to be using 150 sliders now, or even 140 to even 200s. It's important to get that slider down to the bottom. The size of it really wants to be heavy enough so that you're not being affected by too much current or the wind or dragging too fast. So a heavier weight seems to be the better option. So you want to go for a good 120, 150, something like that, which is about that size. It's about this size, 145, something like that. So that's the gist of it, basically. What I use is green sand, and that's what your best molding sand is. I always used silicon sand to start with, and that wasn't bad. You've got to have it a little bit damp so that it holds its shape. And I just put it in a big plastic flat dish like this. It's actually a large saucer for a pot plant. And I'm filling that with my green sand, and then just flattening it out, and then I'll go around and I see I've got marks on for the certain weights, and then I'll just push this down into the sand and retract it. And in the meantime, of course, I'm heating up my lead in a suitable pan on a burner. Best to be outside because it's quite toxic fumes when you're heating lead and melting it. But wherever you're doing it, just do it, and then get that heating up. Then you're pushing these recesses into your sand around the outside, so they're a certain distance apart. And then to create the hole, I'm using a bit of wire here. This is actually good old coat hanger. And you cover that with Vaseline. So you put a bit of, I've got white petroleum jelly, and you wipe that on it and use a cloth, wipe it all over, and then imagine that's in the hole and there's an angle on it like that. You've got to get that angle right so that it hangs properly in the water. It's not actually hanging up, it's hanging a bit like that. So it's a bit of a judgment call. You've got your hole, and then when you've got that greased up, you're going around with one of these for every hole, and you're putting it in on the right angle, pushing it into the mold at about that position. So it's going in like that, and then you just leave it. And you're doing that for all of them. So you've got them stuck in all these holes like that at the right angle. And then you're going around pretty quickly because the sand does dry out quite quick. and then you're pouring your lead up flush level. Don't go over level, it just creates a whole lot of work for you. It's good if it's just flush or just below, and you're just going around each one of those. And then more or less straight away you can use gloves if you've still got them on, and you can pull these out and just twist and pull them out, and then you've got your hole in there. Then I use another bit of wire or a drill to just drill that out a little bit, or a countersunk end to just twiddle with your fingers just to smooth that entry and exit out so your nylon can go through there. They're recommending a heavier fluoro now, up to say 40 pounds or something at least, just because of the abrasion with these heavier weights on the line with it going up and down, and with a fish on the end yanking at it. It's a lot of weight on the actual hooks and the line, so heavier weight is better. So you're just smoothing that entry, and you just smooth it a little bit over when it's cool, of course. And then you can paint it however you want, just making that extra flat so you can put your eyes on. And you can weigh them if you want to and put a number on there, but otherwise then they can end up different configurations like that. Or you can have some design on them. I've found the different coloured, multicolored sort of camouflagey designs quite good. That's about it. I can show you this process. I might just do a bit of a video of that just to show you how it's done. But getting the green sand is probably the trick. You've got to get the green sand from some merchant, some guy who actually does moulding, cast moulding. But you can do it with silicon sand or some quite fine sand, or maybe even a dirt. But then you're going to end up with a rough finish, and you want to get a smooth enough finish like that straight out of the mould, so it's actually quite smooth. Don't have to do any work to that, just the end needs tidying up. And then of course you use any of these, they're not too expensive, they're glow coat or gloss paint. That's just a plain gloss orange, and this is this fluoro yellow sort of color. It comes up pretty bright under a UV light, so it comes off quite easy, but it's easy enough to spray back on. You could coat it with polyurethane or something, make it more robust. But that's about the gist of that. Hi guys, just a bit more of an update on these sliders. So as you can see, quite stretchy, and this shape here I've had quite a lot of success with, and I've got the bright fluoro on the bottom, and on top I've got a bit of, you can see it there, painted with red pen actually, just dotted around. You can put squiggles or dots or lines or dashes, and that's been quite good. It's like a camouflage reaction for a squid perhaps. Underneath those marks I've got a paint that you can buy from Rod and Reel, and it's like a UV sensitive paint, so it glows really a lot under a UV light. So I put that on top of the lead, the basic lead, and then do my designs on top of that, and then you just put it all together. So we'll just show you the basic setup for moulding one of those. Okay folks, well these are the basic pieces, and this is the tray that I use. So I'm just pouring in my sand in there, getting that, trying to fill it right up. Squash it down a bit, so you want a bit of compaction so that it'll hold a good mould. So you're just getting it flashed like that, smoothing it off a bit, much as you can, packing it down a little bit. Should really have a round piece of wood for doing this, but you basically pack it down like that. You want to have it level so that the lead doesn't flow anywhere. Then you're getting your piece that you've moulded like that, so I'll use this one. Obviously my little bits of wire, it's straight bits of wire that you need to coat in your jelly or Vaseline, and the angle of it's going to be like that. So you want the wires facing inwards like that, just so that they're out of the way when you're pouring in your mould, so in your lead. So then you're just poking this down to your line, bit of pressure, and then trying to pull it out as carefully as you can without disturbing the side, and just go around the container like that, not trying to interfere with, not having this pressure affect that one. So you've got to make sure you've got it packed down firm enough so it can handle it. Then you just go all the way around, keeping a distance apart. Then have these coated in Vaseline and then put them in on the right angle. So near the front where you want the entry and angling back, coming out in the middle here. So some will work better than others and you just have to throw, if they're no good you just throw it away and you do it the next time. So you're putting some of those in like that around here each time, as carefully as you can. You can vary them to see which one works out best. And then you're getting your lead. Make sure you've got gloves on and protective eyewear. And then you can pour your lead in continuously. Don't stop really, just continuously up to the level of the sand or just below. That's the tidiest way to do it. And you just go around, and it's all done. And then pretty well straight away you can pull this out and it'll have this attached to it like that. And with your gloves you can just wrestle it off, let it cool down, and then you can work on it and just touch it up a little bit, or any old ones that aren't any good you can throw them back in and do it again if you want to. If you need to do, if you're doing two lots, you just tip all this back into, say, here, and fluff it up again, pour it back in, pack it down again, just do it all again. So you can just keep doing it until you're satisfied you've got enough to work with. And you can have different ones, so you can do one and do a different variety. Larger ones, you just poke it in a bit further if you want to make a heavier one. So you just stop here or here or here. If you've got a shape you like, you just poke it in a little bit deeper each time to make it heavier, and it adds a whole lot of grams to it. So you can go right up if you want to. That's about it. This is a flatbed sander, and this is, while I said grinder, I actually meant sander. So this is where I'm grinding my pieces of dowel to get the flat faces and to get the roundness, and checking to make sure it's symmetrical. Makes pretty quick work of it, and if it's no good you just cut it off and start again. I'm double ending them here, so that's most of the work I do there. And I do the lead too. If I'm just wanting to clean up the lead castings, I'll sand them on this as well, because it seems to work quite well. But it does clog the feet up. You just get a new belt if you have to, but it works for a long time. Just a couple of other additions there, just to clarify things. The actual rods that I'm using now, I've cut them here. You can buy these from the garden centre. They're actually a wire staple for holding down plastic mesh on, you know, your tomatoes or your beans or something. So they were a really cheap way of getting some nice gauge, good straight pieces of wire. You just had to one cut there and you got two. So that's a good place to get those. Obviously in that casting you can make whatever shape you want, and here I've got just like a square sinker, and you would push that into the sand, and then you would place this actually directly in the middle of it. So you have a hole through the center, just as a normal straight line rig, or just a heavy sinker. And also just a basic round sinker like that with a hole through the middle like that, and you can use that for kingfish or just as a general sinker. So you can do that, or any size you want. So, and then of course I've made this little bit of wire here on a piece of dowel, and I put a kink in it here, just get those out of the way, with a certain curve on it, and it means I can run this through here to prepare the hole. And see the way I rotate that, and this curve here is wearing away the lead and making it a smooth entry for the nylon. So that's the way I've done that, and that works quite well. If there's any thicker bits, you can use some type of drill, or you can use a countersink just with your hands, really, a countersink piece of apparatus. But you can do the same thing there. You just rotate that a little bit there, and then you can use a knife or just something to twirl and clean those up. So that's a good system. Something similar like that works anyway. So just a real simple piece of dowel with a hole and a piece of wire. So that's just to add a little bit more of the things that I've realized that I didn't cover. Okay. So if you end up with something along these lines, then you should have a bit of luck. So hope you have some good fishing.